Hello, and welcome to the first Coach Finder Online live on Facebook, our Friday Talks. I'm Melissa Heisler, one of the coaches here at Coach Finder Online, and I'm the author of From Type A to Type Me, How to Stop Doing Life and Start Living It. I've been coaching for about a decade now, guiding entrepreneurs and professionals to improve their health, increase their mental clarity, easily deal with difficult people, and find peace and success in their business and their home and personal life, all through reframing how they approach their responsibilities. Today, we're going to talk a bit about my roots of being a type A overachiever, super doer, and how that led to my poor health and eventually to a journey that brought me more peace and joy than I could have ever imagined. So my earliest memories, I was a doer. I was born into a family of very hardworking farmers. They were very religious and very dedicated to volunteer work. So I spent my younger years giving to others. That was just the norm. It was take care of your business, help others. And it didn't just stop there on what we did in the day. It started to be where I would need jobs. And at 10 years old, I remember going to my father's work and spending the summers answering phones and filing. Now, mind you, this was not a family business. He worked for the public works. He worked for the city. Why and how I ended up in his office, I have no idea. But I would spend hours working at 10 years old helping out. And at 13, I had to help out with the family. My sister was born, and I became mom number 2 and took on that responsibility. But of course, that wasn't enough for me. So at about 14 or 15 years old, I got a work permit because God forbid I wait until I'm 16 years old to legally be able to work, because there's things to do out there, right? And this just followed me all through my education years. You know, in high school, I always had an outside job. I had the school that I was attending, and I also did theater, which took up a lot of nights and weekends. So there was always something to do, something to take care of. Did the same thing in college. Again, I was a teaching assistant. I worked at a PBS station, plus I did theater. And oh, by the way, let's just do some honors classes. So, you know, God forbid I had like 10 minutes of rest during the day. I actually remember one time, I think I went 72 hours without sleep and was going to make it through my last class and then finally be able to go to bed. And unfortunately, it was an astronomy class. And we went to the planetarium and got into those cushy chairs, and they turned out the lights. And I'm like, oh, I'm gone. But that was the first sleep that I had in 72 hours. So everything that I did in my younger years was all about getting things done, helping others. And I ended up in marketing for my career, which is all about deadlines. I was traveling across the country. There was all the politics of work. You know, it was 9 managers in 8 years, I think, something like that. And going through layoffs and all the stress involved with work. And through all of this, whether it was school or theater or service work or the job, the profession that I had, everything was about doing. And everything else went into the back burner. My health wasn't even considered. My spouse was rarely considered. You know, friends and family were rarely on the list. I remember a time actually, and I wish this would have woken me up, but it didn't. I got a call at work one day, and my father-in-law had passed. And I told my husband I would come there. He asked me to come to the family home, and I said, you know, I'll be there. And then I finished a couple emails, and I told my boss I needed to leave, and I checked my snail mail inbox. And I don't know if it was a half hour or maybe a little bit longer, and I was finally walking out the door, and my husband called me again and said, "Are you coming?" I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving now." And I get to the house, I had no idea that the family kept my father-in-law there for me to see him before they went off with the funeral home. And so here was a time that I put at work so far ahead of family and what was really important. What I'm going to do today is talk more, a little bit more about my story of what it meant being this type A stressaholic and doing my life, and how I finally realized what it was doing to me, and what I did to turn it around. So hopefully it gives you inspiration to turn your life around as well. So as I mentioned, what happened to my father-in-law, that didn't wake me up. What finally had to wake me up was my health. My body was in disrepair. It was the stress had finally taken issues on me. I didn't know that at the time. In fact, I just kept going to doctor after doctor. I had immune issues, I had fatigue, I had irritation, I had digestive issues, I had reproductive issues. I mean, a whole gambit, stress, muscle pain. And I'd go to doctor after doctor and nobody could tell me what was wrong. And I finally went to my OB one day, after years of trying different pills and different things. And he says, well, let's give you a hysterectomy. At 30 years old, mind you, let's give you a hysterectomy and maybe that will help. And I said, maybe's not a good enough reason to start taking body parts out. So I had to try to find a different way, and I started to going to alternative treatments, acupuncture and herbal medicine and nutrition. And I found some relief, but I never really found what was wrong and how to get rid of it. So one day I was getting a massage from my massage therapist because of all the muscle tension. And she had taken frequent trips to Peru to work with a shaman. And so she always told me about her trips. And this time she told me about how this shaman cured a man of cancer. And I'm like, if he can help cure cancer, he's got to be able to do something for me. So the next thing I know, I'm on my way to Peru to work with a shaman. Now, I don't know much about shamanism, still really don't. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It ended up to be an advanced group, not like an intro thing. But it was 10 days with 2 shaman and ayahuasca, and it was an amazing journey. And I will tell you that after those 10 days, the pain was gone. My digestion was healed. My pain, my physical pain, my mental pain, all felt relieved. I felt younger and healthier than I had in years, if ever. But what I'm not here to talk to you about today is to become a shaman or to join, what they do in Peru. Because what really woke me up from this trip was that once we landed in Miami and I had to get my luggage and go through customs and race through the airport to try to get to my connecting flight, I started to feel all those symptoms coming back. And my first reaction was, do I have to go to Peru and live there, or go once a year or once a month to feel good? And then I'm like, no, wait a minute. It might have taken the shaman 10 days to heal me, but I'm more powerful than that. I was able to make these symptoms come back within minutes. And so that really led me to a quest to find out how I could feel like I did in Peru, but to do it in my normal life. And what I'd like to share with you is some of the highlights of what I learned and what I've taken on for myself and what I now teach others through the coaching that I do. And the three big ones that I want to hit on today is, first, I redefined what life was. What was success? As you can tell by the introduction, before it was all about doing. It was about achievement. It was about accomplishment. It was checking off the checklists. That wasn't working for me, so I needed to redefine my life. Second, we're going to talk about growing our awareness and of how our choices really affect what we experience and affect our mental and physical health. And then finally, it's about accepting and utilizing your power. So the first thing is that redefining what life and success really means. For me, it was the A in class. It was getting the promotion. It was doing my work perfectly. There was the ego of doing more work than anyone else. I think there's a badge of honor in the States right now of being busy. If you're not busy, you're not successful. And that really wasn't serving me. So I really looked at redefining what life meant to me. And to me, life is about experiencing. What am I experiencing in this moment? And is it bringing me joy? And if I base everything that I do, all the choices that I do, on is it bringing me joy? Is this what I want to experience? It suddenly gives me a whole new picture to life. So it's really looking at what's important. Is what you're going through right now, is it going to be important in 5 years? Is it even going to be important in 5 months? How about 5 minutes from now? I mean, how many things do we stress about that really aren't important? I mean, the whole scheme of things. It was interesting. I had written these notes, I think 7 years ago or more, to do a talk at a different place, and it's when I used to live in the United States. And I'm looking over my notes, and it's like, what will be important in 5 years? Well, 5 years later, I'm living in Mexico. All the stress that I had about my house, about shoveling snow, about the groups I was involved with in that area, those are unimportant right now. They're really kind of meaningless. And so it's really important to look at where you're putting your focus and what you're giving importance to. And to focus on that experience. If it's not giving you joy, if it's not giving you peace, then why are you doing it? And then I think it's also releasing the outcome. Before, with the check boxes and the type A and the wanting to get A's, it was all about what the result was. And part of experience is being in the journey. And I know I wanted to slap people when I was that crazy type A, when they said, life isn't about the destination, it's about the journey. And I'm like, no, it's about the destination. But really, really, truly, it is about the journey. And because that's really what you take with you. That's really what you have at the end of the day. And so part of redefining what life meant to me was to start being in the moment versus, living the fast and furious life, jumping from one task to another, being concerned about what happened yesterday or trying to control what was going to happen tomorrow. I really wanted to focus on this moment and make this moment absolutely important. I've unfortunately had a lot of loss in my life. And one of the things that I try to remember is, if you and I are sharing the last 5 minutes of my life, is this what I want to be doing? Is this bringing me joy? Is this helping someone else? And so when you get caught up in the stress of your day, stop a minute and say, is this really how you want to spend your last 5 minutes? Because we don't know when those last 5 minutes are going to come. So take a step back every so often when you see yourself in unhappiness, and see if you can't rechange and refocus and say, if this is the last moment I have, is this what I want? And take each moment to just make it a little bit better. to see if there is anything that you can do to just make things a little bit better. Sometimes there's things we have to do and we don't like them. Life is not perfect. But is there something you can do to make it easier? Cleaning up after dinner, washing the dishes is not my favorite thing. If my husband joins me, then it's time for us to talk. Or if I have my favorite show on in the background, it's not a big deal. So sometimes there's things we have to do, but can we make them a little bit easier to do? Also, in this redefining life, I really learned how to stop being ruled by technology. The tools that we have, the phones and the social media and all of that, instead of being helpful tools, they kind of become rulers, despotic rulers actually sometimes. I always think of Pavlov's dog, which, when Pavlov trained his dog that when he rang the bell, the dog thought he was going to eat, so he'd start to salivate. And I think we're the exact way with our phones now. It's like, oh, it went off. Oh, I got to be connected or I'm going to be lost. Oh, if I don't respond right away, this person's not going to like me. And all of a sudden, it doesn't become about the connection. It becomes about the doing. It becomes about the necessity. It becomes about the fear. And so I'm really careful now of controlling the electronics around me and really using them to improve, not subtract from my life. So that's a little bit about how I changed my viewpoint of what life really is. And I encourage you to take a little time to look at your life. And is what you're really striving for serving you? So the second area I'd like to explore a little bit is about growing your awareness of the choices you have in your health and your experience. Throughout the health issues I was having, I really felt like a victim. I thought that it was genetics. I thought I was making bad choices in what I was eating, but it's what everybody else did, so that's what I should do. I thought it was my job that was causing me stress, and the job was at fault, and I needed to win the lottery. But in truth, it wasn't some outside source. It was my inability to listen to what my body needed, and it was my desire to add in more stress. And so this led me to look a lot into stress. And again, I think it's a badge of honor for a lot of people to say how stressed they are, how busy they are. And what's interesting about stress is that we keep it on all the time, but it's not supposed to be. If you've ever seen two ducks or two other animals fight, they get all riled up. And then when they're done, they go in separate directions and you'll see them kind of shake it off. And what they're doing is actually resetting the stressors. When we get stressed, our cortisone gets elevated and our adrenals, and because we need that to fight or flee. But when we're done, we need to shut that down. And what happens in the States is we never shut it off. We go from, I got up late and I got to get the kids ready and then I have to rush and drop them off and oh my gosh, I'm late for that meeting and my 401k just drops this amount of percentages, and our stresses build and build and build, and we never let them go and we never turn them off. And this is really what happened to my body, was that I was always on high alert. I was always in that stress mode. And when we're in that stress mode, like I said, we're ready to fight. But to have our energy to go to that, it means our body turns off our digestive system. It turns off our reproductive system. It turns off our immune system. And I think it also turns off a little bit of our brain because we're in kind of that reactionary mode. So, when we don't let go of our stress, when we continue to build it, then we're hurting ourselves physically in the long term because our bodies need nutrition. They need our immune system. And so we need to learn how to turn off that stress. We need to turn off that doing and learn how to relax. And I know relax is a hard thing for type A'ers and doers as well. It's like, I don't have time to relax, or relaxing is for slackers. But no, our body's meant to do that. You know, the sun's out during the day and then the moon comes out at night. The same cycle should happen for us. And so it's really understanding how your body works and how your thinking affects your life. And to have the courage and take the responsibility to make different choices. And so it's making different choices on how much stress we bring into our life and how we treat our body, and also what we're creating throughout our day. I remember, we're coming up on Thanksgiving here. I remember Thanksgiving, I guess, I don't even know how many years ago now. But my father was ill at the time, and he didn't want to make the trip down to my cousin's house. And so all of a sudden, Thanksgiving, it was at my house. So now I had to clean my house, which I hate, get ready to have people over. I wasn't going to be able to see my cousin. You know, I had all the work to prep the food. And I was starting to get down and angry and resentful. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, going back to that, if this was the last 5 minutes, is this really what I want to be feeling like? And I changed it to, you know what? How great is it that my father's still here, that we're going to have a small, quiet Thanksgiving where we can really talk to each other, and I get to make the food that I like, so bonus, right? But it's changing that thought. In changing that thought, we can change our experience. But you've got to believe that you've got that ability to change. Now, I didn't change the circumstance. Everybody was still coming to my house. I still had those responsibilities. But I changed how I approached the circumstance. And so the more that we can be aware of what the circumstances are, how we're reacting to them, and what different actions we could take is really key. And then the final area I'd like to talk about is accepting and utilizing your power. And one thing I'd like to share, when I was in Peru, one of the last places that we went to was a site called Pisac, and it was really beautiful. It was much larger than Machu Picchu, and it's just vast area. I don't remember how many football fields huge this place was. It was amazing. But I had found this little area that I was just kind of drawn to. And when I stood there, I kind of started to waver and just had this really weird experience. And so I ran over the shaman and said, hey, this just happened. What's going on? What should I do? And being the wise man that he was, he looked at me and said, what do you think? And I'm like, you know, I just paid how much money and came how many miles to work with the expert here. What are you saying? What do I think? But that was really what he was trying to teach me, is that I already know the answers. I already have the power to utilize the things in my life and to make changes in my life. And so with a little bit of his guidance, I did find out what I was supposed to do. And that day there was a very cleansing day for me. I had an amazing healing there. But it kind of brings to mind how much we give up our power to others. You know, whether it's our parents, whether it's doctors, society as a whole, we always think somebody else is the expert, and we forget that we can be the expert. So I think it's really important, you know, if anything from my story in Peru, hopefully you take away with, is that no one healed me when I was there. You know, I didn't mention, but the month before I went to Peru, I was on a strict diet. I walked to work, which I think was 5 miles each day, because I wanted to get ready for the altitude. Every day when I was in Peru, I journaled. I did a lot of work to find that healing. It wasn't done to me, it was done with me. And that's one of the things that I've really picked up now in my life that makes a difference, is to really focus on my health on a daily basis. You know, my thoughts, my beliefs, my choices mentally, my choices in what I put into my body and how much rest I give it. All of those things make a difference, but no one outside of me is going to fix me. It's about making those choices on my own level. And I think a lot of times this kind of goes back to us blaming our circumstances. And there's actually two people, a husband and wife that I knew that was going through cancer at the same time. And the husband had, unfortunately, had terminal cancer and very painful cancer. And he was pretty okay with things. He kind of accepted his situation and made the most of it and tried to find joy in the days that he had left. His wife, on the other hand, they had noticed a little colon cancer. They removed it when they had seen it during the routine colonoscopy, and she was fine. She had no treatment she had to take. She just had to come back in 6 months. She felt more stress than her husband. Because she's like, oh my God, what if I have cancer too? Who's going to take care of him? What's going on? Why is this happening to us? She caused herself more pain than the cancer did. And so, you know, we all have that choice in our life on how we approach things and how we make things happen and how we want to live our lives. And so I really encourage you to stop looking to others to fix you and start looking to yourself and to really see what it is that that you're doing and that you can change to make your life a little bit better. So I truly hope that hearing a little bit about my story and my learnings have helped you to stop doing and start living your life. I really hope that you you start by redefining what life really means to you. You know, what is it that you really want out of life? And then make a choice every day to be in alignment with what you want. See what's not working and see if you can shift it to be more in alignment with the joy and the peace that you want. And then increase your awareness of your actions and thoughts. See how your actions and thoughts are affecting your health and experience. What are you doing to help or hamper that life that you really want? And I truly hope that you remember that you have the power to create the life that you want. Right here, right now, you can start creating it. A free gift that I'd love to give you that's in the chat box there is a giveaway. It's a free online course called Making Time for Stress Relief. And it's a very simple course with 3 things that you can take a look at and see if you can start making a little time to make changes in your life and what you want. For those of you on the call, if you have any questions, I'll stick around for a couple minutes here if you want me to answer them. Otherwise, please check out my link on coachfinderonline.com, and I'd love to connect with you and talk with you and see how what I've said or what I haven't said, you know, if we want to talk through some other things, how that may help you out. So I truly wish you a happy, joyous, peaceful life, and I hope that you take a little look at what you're doing and put aside what's not serving you and start to really live the life that you want. Thanks so much, and join us here again at Coach Finder Online to next Friday to hear a little bit more from another coach. Thanks.